then also there's limited empirical research on IDA among preschool-aged children here in Uasin Gishu County. And this is the reason as to why we saw it right to do this project. So my research objectives, my general objective was to determine the prevalence and predictors of IDA among preschool-aged children. My specific objectives are as follows. So the main question that I wanted to check under my research questions is there a relationship between the socioeconomic characteristics of the households here in Uasin Gishu County and the occurrence of IDA among our children? I also wanted to understand the association between the dietary patterns of these children. What do they normally eat? And does it predispose them to IDA? So my methodology, this was a cross-sectional study design with a two-stage stratified cluster sample. I'll explain that further. The study population was the preschool-aged children, as I have said, which are children between 6 to 59 months. And then the study area was here in Uasin Gishu County. Behind, sorry, we can move up to the sample size. Oh, it isn't moving, it's okay. So what we did, we had purposively selected Uasin Gishu County, but we decided to stratify the county into 3. That is the rural area, the urban area, and the peri-urban areas, the informal settlements. So that's how we got our sample. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, so the data collection, we used, next slide. Let me face this way so that I can be moving with them. So we used questionnaires to collect the data on the socioeconomic and socio-demographic characteristics. On their dietary intake, we used a tool known as a 24-hour recall, which was then further gave us the dietary diversity scores of the households. For biochemical tests, I used the hemoglobin level as an indicator of IDA. So we used the HemoQ to take a fingerprint blood sample so that we can test for the HB level, which was further now used as an indicator for IDA. So for data analysis, we used the SPSS. Descriptives were used to analyze the socio-demographic characteristics. Chi-square tests were used to test for the associations, and we did multiple ordinal logistic regression to assess the relationship between the predictor variables and IDA. Next slide. So ethical approval was sought from AMREF. We can move to the next slide. Yeah, here we have our interesting findings. So for socioeconomic characteristics as seen on the
recording
chart
in
there,
progress.
Majority of the households were between the second level of wealth index and the lowest level. So we can see that the characteristics of the households that we went to were from the lowest to the middle class. Very few were from the highest, or rather the wealthiest wealth index sections. And then a good finding that we had is that most of the participants at least were involved in income generating activities. 35% of them were manual workers, casual workers, but still at least they had an income. Can move to the next slide. So when it comes to prevalence of iron deficiency anemia, we found that 27.3% of the children suffered from severe IDA. Severe IDA, I mean HB level of below 10 grams per deciliter. Then 21.1 had mild IDA. This gives an overall prevalence of 48.4%, which is relatively high. When you check the differences between the boys and the girls, from the box plots shown there, you see that the girls are doing fairly well with a higher mean compared to the boys, but upon statistical analysis, it showed that their means did not differ significantly, showing that all boys and girls are still similarly predisposed to IDA, and they are all similarly affected. When you see the relationship between IDA and the age, the children who are between the ages of 6 to 12 months were the most affected, and those between the ages of 24 to 23 months. And what does this show us? It shows us that from birth to 6 months, when the child is still breastfeeding, they are within a safe window. But the moment we start complementary feeding, and we are not feeding the children with the right thing, they start going on a down low and become more predisposed to IDA. We can move to the next slide. So this was the major thing that we wanted to check. Since we had stratified the area into rural, urban, and peri-urban areas, we wanted to see if there's a difference. And what we found that despite the peri-urban areas, the Langas, Munyaka areas having high levels of iron deficiency anemia, statistically, it showed no significant relationship. So whether the child is in a rural area, an urban area, or a peri-urban area, they are all similarly being predisposed to IDA. So when we check on the relationship between IDA and socioeconomic characteristic, an interesting finding that we found is that children from married parents were 4.53 times more likely to be normal, not having IDA, compared to children who are from single parent households. And we also see that an increase in wealth made the child become less predisposed to IDA. Maybe these houses, children are able to get the nyama, they are able to get these iron-rich foods compared to the poor households. So when we check now the relationship between IDA and the dietary diversity, the food that the children were taking, majority of the children had a very low dietary diversity score. By dietary diversity score, I mean the number of food groups that the child is getting within a day. A child is supposed to be getting between 8 to 9 food groups in a day, but most of the children were getting between 1 to 2 food groups. Meaning we see in Kenya that even in Uasin Gishu, the children are being limited to maybe carbohydrates and are not getting the proteins and the vitamins, the minerals that they're supposed to be getting in their diets. And we see that most of the children, 77.22% of the children who had a low dietary diversity also had severe anemia, which is something that we need to look into. Next. So from the conclusions, as I had said earlier, 48.4% of the preschool-aged children suffered from IDA. Children between the ages of 6 to 12 months were the most critically affected with iron deficiency anemia. And then we see when it comes to the predictors, we saw that the maternal level of education, low maternal level of education, low dietary diversity score, poor socioeconomic status were the main predictors of IDA in Uasin Gishu County. So what do we recommend? Under the recommendations, we recommend that nutrition interventions should address the dietary diversity of this age group. Special consideration should be put in place to address deficiencies, especially in informal settlements, because we saw the peri-urban areas were the most affected. Thank you so much. That was my presentation.
Thank you, Sheila. Let's clap for her. Thank you very much. She has stuck to her 10 minutes. And I think we are doing very well. So keep the questions. We'll have a Q&A session, probably at the end of this. I want to invite Corazon to come and do her presentation. She did a study at the Eldoret National Polytechnic. To our undergraduate students, you are welcome. When you become now a postgraduate student, this is the kind of things you'll be telling us, what you have gone to find out, and you bring us the answers here. So I want to invite her so that she can take us through what she has done at Eldoret National Polytechnic. Welcome.
Thank you so much. All protocol observed. As we wait for the presentation. Yes, okay. My name is Caroline Sitati. I'm a postgraduate student. As I was working on this paper, I'm supposed to graduate this month. And I'm a tutor at the Eldoret National Polytechnic.
Okay, meanwhile, Albert, you could be getting us the online presenters and get them ready so that by the time Corazon finishes, they just get online. Then our ICT, I'm at you again. You are letting us down.
Okay,
Right,
thank you
it's
so much. That was the topic we worked on, Dr. Dina Samiko and myself, Sitati Carozon. The topic was the effectiveness of lecture versus laboratory methods in teaching biological science. These are Module 1 students, which are the first years at the Eldoret National Polytechnic. And you see the sub-theme is mostly about the technology, education, and TVET. Next slide. So you find that laboratory teaching method has been carrying the day, mostly when you are working on a biological science curriculum among learners. But lecture style has also been successful, mostly in educational system, institutions. And it was found out by most research that majority of teachers are found to be very competent and skilled at using these variety of teaching techniques. But the only problem comes in that because of the large class sizes we have and lack of time, they are forced to use the lecture instead of the other methods that are mostly suggested within the pedagogy skills. Next slide, please. So trainers are mostly in Kenya TVET. This is the Technical Vocational Education Training Institution. They use both these methods, the lecture that is and the problem-solving methods. But frequently these methods are to blame for the poor results. And when you look at, they're raising a lot of concerns, especially with the low number of students getting certification after sitting for the Kenya National Examination Council exams. Therefore, the poor performance in these exams, especially in the technical vocational trainings by the trainees, it gave us an opportunity to study these effective of laboratory versus lecture methods of teaching biological science to students at the Eldoret National Polytechnic. With an attempt, why are we doing this? With an attempt along the line to identify the best teaching methods for biological science courses at the Eldoret National Polytechnic. Next slide, please. And what was the gap in this? The statement of the problem. Biological science courses in TVET, Vocational Educational Training Institution, mostly focuses on the opportunities to equip the students with the sufficient knowledge, both either in problem solving and theoretical skills to produce competent graduates. However, most of these methods of teaching are not very effective and leading to poor performance by the trainees. And the problem is that there is underperformance, which leads to a low number of students getting certification, and the majority fail to meet the labor market. When you talk about the labor markets, how are they going outside and be able to be sufficient and to meet the work in the place they are going to work? So you find that TVET institution in Kenya, they have very limited information and data on teaching methodology, that's pedagogy. And for this reason, the effectiveness of laboratory versus lecture methods, that is the teacher-centered method of teaching biological sciences students at the Eldoret National Polytechnic, Uasin Gishu County, has not yet been much established in this content. Justification of this research is that basic teaching methods make trainees to be self-independent and adapt the requirement of the labor market. But employing the best teaching methods in TVET institution continuously upgrade students' learning outcome, and it fosters the academic excellence in general. But laboratory and lecture, that is the teacher-centered method, have been seen not to be very effective, and it is leading to very poor performance. Therefore, a research on this study of the two teaching methods to the student at the Eldoret National Polytechnic Uasin Gishu County was very important to justify in order to be known and be documented so that effective methods can be implemented in TVET institution as a whole. Next slide, please. What were the objectives of this study? We want to compare the effectiveness of the two methods measured by the students' performance in the exam test score. The study research, we use what we call the quasi-experimental design, which was utilized because this class was an intact class. And it consists of the pre-test and the post-test. When I say the intact class, we wanted mostly to achieve the best results without separating or going random for these students, because all students were to be able to be assessed. So we had the two groups, whereby groups one received a pre-test. When I talk about the pre-test, this is when the students come in. These are the first year students. We give them the pre-test before we apply the treatment, and then we also give again the post-test assessment. So the lecture method, same to group 2, had a pre-test, after which they were also taught laboratory method, and we separated as the table as it is showing. Next slide. The study adapted what we call purposive sampling, identification of the applied biology course. And then we had the CESA sampling, which was used. This is where we just took all the 78 students within the class. And then we applied the satisfactory response rate achievement to get this. We had 78 students with 1 trainer who did the lecture method, and again the next he came for the laboratory method. And that is what we got. The research instrument, this is the pre-test assessment that was applied. When you talk about the pre-test assessment in this research, is assessing the dependent variables with selected questions. And mostly the questions which came in, these were gram staining and culture media topics that were given to these students. And the version which was used, we used 50 test items on these students based on the blue taxonomy. When you talk about the blue taxonomy, you understand all these on how you said these questions, either the knowledge question, the application, and the analysis. And then we gave now the treatment. The treatment is now came in, and now how are you teaching? We came in as a research with the lecture, and now the laboratory method. This is the problem-solving method. The treatment was of 2. On 2 topics, I said gram staining and culture media through preparation of lesson plans. The lecture and laboratory method were applied in teaching the 2 groups before the post-test exam was administered. And then now the post-test assessment came in after treatment, now after we have taught these students. And the topic question tested had a very different version of setting, but it remained that they were in the same topic, gram stain and culturing of the media. But the setting of this question on the post-test was very different. And then students were evaluated using the post-test that don't contain exactly the same questions they were encountered in the pre-test. The reliability of this research instrument was that the research gave a pre-test and post-test to these 78 trainees, and the pre-test and the post-test score were then subjected to Spearman's correlation test using the SPSS. And then we found the coefficient of 0.847%, which was very efficient for this research. Data management was done by both descriptive and the inferential statistics. And then you find that the t-test was used to determine if the 2 groups had the difference significantly among themselves. And the results were presented in tables, using tables. Results. When we looked at the pre-test, this is the student who was subjected to this pre-test. Was there any change between the laboratory teaching method and the lecture teaching method? You find that student in the pre-test lecture had a mean score of 59.64, while now in the pre-test, those one whom we gave the laboratory had a score of 16.256, as the table shows. In comparing of these 2 methods, you find that the study research showed that there was a very significant difference in mean of the 2 methods of teaching these applied biology students. That is the pre-test now. Next slide, please. And then we gave now the post-test after treatment. Student in the post-test lecture group had a mean score of 73 points, 590, whereas there is the post-test. In laboratory, group received a mean score of 77.615. What does this show? Next slide. The study showed that there was also significant difference. Remember, this is now the post-test. We had the pre-test, and now this is the post-test. And also there was a significant difference between these two groups when we have given the treatment and then we have given the post-test. Next slide. Discussion. You find that during the study of this, comparing the results of the two methods, the findings showed that there was a very significant difference in the mean of the two methods of teaching. This suggests that when using instruction of these two approaches, that is the problem solving and the lecture method, the researcher believed that laboratory method is commonly employed in technical vocational institutions in Kenya for practical topics, and that is why they performed very well. And it might be the reason for the student achieving the high score in the laboratory method. Next slide. And then you find that this finding is in agreement with the finding of the one of the researcher, which showed that there was significant improvement in the recipient knowledge after the treatment. Conclusion in this. Under this research, there was a conclusion that this study finding showed that there is significant difference in the effectiveness of lecture versus laboratory method in teaching biological science students at the institution. So the laboratory way of teaching was more successful based on this research than the lecture techniques in terms of student performance on the pre-test and the post-test. And for the improvement of good performance in class as well as outside the classroom, Kenya as a developing nation should involve more students in the study of biological science by problem-solving techniques through practical skills. Recommendation on this. Requirement for this, we recommended for the requirement of competence-based educational training curriculum, which is now coming in with the CEDAC. And this may be done through either participating in workshops and seminars for trainers to remain up to date on new advancement in this scientific teaching. And also, Department of Biological Science, especially in TVET, it has to be given access to their own funds. Because you find that mostly in this TVET, there are funds that are always given, but you find that laboratories, despite the government giving all these funds, the laboratories are not being equipped well. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corazon. This was a study done by the two ladies in front here. I'm the Dr. Samiko, and she has been my mouthpiece. Thank you very much. Thank you. Next, I want us to go online. I want to believe there is a presenter who is ready. Who is ready?
Yes, I am.
Dr. Muteo, are you ready?
Yes. Yes, I am. Sorry. Okay.
We had said that we put them on standby online so that immediately they go on.
Yes.
Is there
Oh. rally these people and we educate them on all these experiences. Of course, considering their cultural context, because every region is unique in its own way. And next slide. So this study is on methodology. It's a literature review. So we used secondary research methods, and we analyzed, guided by key variables, that is sports and communication development, communication theories, practices, use of sport in climate change mitigation, and challenges. And so that is what guided this literature review. We had one key objective, of course, to ensure or to find out or to explore, to provide an overview of how this sports strategy in communication is being used in tackling matters climate change. It's a very innovative and creative way of bringing people together so that as they enjoy the sporting activities, they are also able to talk about how they can tackle climate change, which is one of the key development activities that need to be addressed from all levels. Next slide. So we move to the theories of communication, and I will just say that they are very, we'll only briefly look at them, just move to the theories themselves. The next slide. Move to the next slide, the theories themselves. Next slide. All right, so the first theory is diffusion, or what we call top-down theory. And this is basically aimed at transferring information to communities through mass media, radio, TV, and the like, for purposes of what? Bringing about development, or what they consider, the proponents of this theory considered as modernization. So it was mainly, communication was here used to give people information. It was not giving them an opportunity to decide whether this information is relevant to them or not. It was just do this and do this and do that. The next theory is dependency and world system theories. Now, based on the weaknesses of diffusion, which is or top-down approach, they came up with the dependency. And this one is talking about assisting developing nations so that they can become economically independent. So that they do not rely on other developed nations. Then the third theory is what is emerging participatory paradigm. Now, this one is focusing mainly on bringing communities together to participate in whatever development aspects are taking place in their localities. It is moving from persuasion to participation, involving people to take action, but from an understanding, so that they are involved in everything that is taking place. Dialogues are, initiated, so that by the time they take action, they understand why they are taking action, where they are coming from, and where they are going. Social marketing is the next theory, which focuses on behavior change in terms of consumption, so that we are focusing on giving people this information so that they can change their attitudes towards perception of products in the market. But this has also been adopted in development communication. Then we have social mobilization, which again now focuses on bringing communities together so that they can identify a problem that they're experiencing as a community, analyze it, and prioritize what problems need to be addressed first, and therefore, again, table down the steps that they need to put in place to address these matters. And one of the matters we're talking about in this case is climate change. And then we have media advocacy, which again focuses on rallying people behind to shape the matters on policy by looking at people's opinions, and then, bringing out in public so that people can know what other people want. And then I think we move to the next slide. Of course, using media, mass media specifically, among other techniques. Then we move to the next slide. What interventions have been taken using this method to handle climate change? Now, I'll just summarize. We have interventions at international level, and we have interventions at a national level. Now we are advocating also interventions at at the local level. Quickly, at the international level, we have the United Nations has done a lot. They are the ones actually who initiated the program of using sports, and they came up with a framework that uses sports in the development agendas. And we are told that United Nations Development Department of Economics and Social Affairs 2022 have noted that using sports as a tool provides a fresh and innovative effort to reduce and respond to matters climate change, meaning it has been endorsed to do as a technique that can be used to handle these. Now, you notice that other international organizations, FIFA and the likes, African Union, you know, all these football organizations have come together, and they have, in one way or the other, endorsed and used sport as a technique in handling matters environmental change, especially on mitigation and adaptation. Next slide. That continues on what is being done at the international level. You can see the UN has launched Sports for Climate Action Framework under what we are calling United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Then we have the COP26 conference, which again also emphasized the use of sports and endorsed it as one of the strategies to be used. Then the next slide, we move to the interventions at public and national level. Again, you can see it also begins from the US from the year 2016 all the way down. You can see workshops have been held, reports have been written on sustainable use of sports. Now, at this juncture, let me also say that sports has a dual purpose, as you can see, in terms of, we have a communicative purpose in terms of educating, you know, creating awareness, mobilizing for action. And then the other purpose is non-communicative, where even as we organize for the sporting events, we have to consider what levels of, for example, greenhouse emissions we are contributing as a sport. Like, for example, when you are convening Olympics and such kind of large games, people are moving, transport. How are we constructing our stadia today? What source of energy are we using? So sport in itself, you will realize, is like double-edged sword. In one way, we can use it to reduce green emissions. At the same time, we can also.
You have 2 minutes.
I have 2 minutes. Okay. The rest. So the next is non-governmental. So I want to jump to the challenges. There is stakeholder willingness and commitment is still not there. We are still not accepting that sport is a strategy that we can use. We are lacking policies, especially related to development communication on space sports-based climate change initiatives. We don't have targets. We are also saying we want to reduce contradictory commitments. NGOs are saying they want to support. At the same time, they are getting scholarships and sponsorships and grants from fossil fuels. So that is also a challenge. And then there's also a lack of support. In conclusion, we move to the next slide. Conclusion and recommendations. Sport, yes, it has been recognized as a significant communicative and non-communicative role in climate change and adaptation. In communication, sport mobilizes, educates, entertains, and motivates stakeholders to take action in combating climate change. We need to explore the place of development communication in development, especially initiatives, especially on climate change adaptation and mitigation. Institutions like us, universities, schools, and churches need to explore the use of sports as a communication strategy in sustainability projects, one of them being climate change. And lastly, the non-communicative function of sports, we also need to, as we organize events, we need to consider the amount of green gases emissions that the sporting events that we organize countrywide are producing, so that we can adopt strategies that will reduce, like using renewable energy and the like. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Are we together?
Yes, we can hear you, and thank you very much for that beautiful presentation. Please respond if you can hear us.
Caroline, you can come on.
Hello, I'm present.
Okay.
Caroline, you can share your slides. You able to do a slideshow?
Caroline, you can proceed.
Thank you very much, Dr. I am presenting the title Exploring Synergy, Technology and Education, a comprehensive analysis of TVET's impact and implications in Kenya. As I've said, I'm Carol Wangila and Agnes Oseko. When I begin with the introduction, it is important to realize that the technical and vocational education, rather the TVET, is an educational framework that actually is aimed to improve on the skills of learners who are supposed to be working with practical skills. It is also important to realize that it is a critical pillar in workforce development, answering the growing need for specialized skills in a variety of industries. And concurrently, the use of technology in education has transformed learning techniques by providing a variety of digital tools and resources that enhance the educational experience. The combination of TVET and technology at the same time, education coming in, not only bridges the skill gap, but also provides a dynamic learning environment, enabling learners to flourish in a rapidly changing global market. When it comes to TVET, or rather the definition of the TVET, you're going to realize that TVET refers to the learning of practical skills and information needed for certain sectors. Those are like vocational schools, and on the job of training all parts of it, TVET provides individuals with specific skills that are suited to the needs of the labor market. TVET in general helps in increasing the efficacy and efficiency. It provides interactive learning platforms, virtual simulations, and access to an extensive library of instructions resources. When it comes to this TVET, we're also reminded that it promotes engagement, flexibility, and individualized learning. At the same time, we realize that TVET as a whole has various advantages in that it allows real-world simulations, hands-on experience, and remote learning. And technology also makes it clear for students and teachers to collaborate to create a more dynamic learning environment. To get the justification and all about TVET, the methodology used to review was through search string, application of quality assurance, and the internet search. I find out that Technology has an enormous promise. Its use in TVET confronts several hurdles: infrastructure limits, accessibility concerns, and technology differences are among them. Adapting to quickly emerging technology and granting digital literacy among instructors and students are also key challenges. The convergence of technology and education has far-reaching consequences for TVET institutions. We have digital strategies, curriculum design, and faculty training programs are all required to effectively harness the potential of technology in TVET. Institutions must embrace innovation and adaptability. On that, we have learners also learning in the TVET, as it equips them with the 21st century skills. It also enhances their employability and prepares them for the digital workforce. Technology that enables a learning that fosters self-placed learning. At the same time, we have the critical thinking and problem-solving abilities. In this particular TVET, rather with the collaboration of education and technology, we understand that I understand that technology facilitates this partnership by enabling industry-relevant training, workplace stimulations, and internship opportunities. And out of this, we have graduates getting jobs, and therefore, that is the intention of the TVET. The graduates are to get jobs. But generally, as we look at the contemporary society right now, you realize that there is that particular gap simply because of when we look back in Kenya, there isn't much that is being done when it comes to the TVET, simply because the collaboration of the technology is not so much realized. And when you can compare with other places like the FAB Academy, that is a MIT that focuses on digital fabrication and prototyping through the 3D printing that is happening in places like Korea, it is not actually being realized in Kenya. And I feel that this is the gap that is supposed to be filled so that the TVET can collaborate or rather work well with the education that it is providing. We further move on to a university like a college like Korea Polytechnic University, which is located in South Korea, where we are being told that there is a specialized program that actually works with the smart factory. It works with engineering and any skill that it pertains the cutting edge industry, which moves on to technology. In comparison to Kenya TVET right now, you're going to realize that whatever is happening, we have skills on plumbing. We have also electricity that is being offered in these particular colleges. And so it is important that emerging technologies in TVET becomes a place of embracing emerging these technologies, simply because we have artificial intelligence that has been brought in, Internet of Things, and virtual reality that has been brought in. The only concern comes in that when we have electricity, we have building and construction, yet we have these technologies coming in like the artificial intelligence, then what happens to these people that are so much working on the skills that they have at the current market? So it is important to realize that with that, we have the digital divide, which actually addresses the equitable of technology. And so efforts must be made to bridge the gap by providing affordable devices, that is the internet connectivity and digital literacy programs, so that we actually reduce the gap that we are having right now. You also realize that when it comes to the policy implications, the integration of technology in TVET necessitates supportive policies and framework. Governments and educational authorities must formulate digital education policies and allocate adequate funding and promote public-private partnership. Policy interventions are crucial to ensure the successful integration and sustainability of technology in the TVET factor. The future prospects of technology in TVET are promising, yes, simply because of we are having advancement in technology, which leads to adaptive assessment and seamless integration of virtual and physical learning environment. All in all, our technology will continue to play a pivotal role in addressing emerging skills requirements and preparing learners for the future workforce. And out of that, a case study that comes out is examining successful case studies that provides valuable insights into the impact of technology in TVET. And it is important. Case studies are in inspiration simply because they are encouraging us to have that further guidance and implementation of technology in the TVET sector. In conclusion, the synergy of technology and education in TVET offers immense potential. The only challenge comes in whether it is sustainable. And all in all, we do believe that it enhances learning outcomes, prepares learners for the digital workforce, and strengthens industrial collaboration. The recommendation to sustain the synergy of technology and education then comes to challenges such as the digital divide and infrastructure limitations need to be addressed. At the same time, simply because the TVET began in 2014, you're going to realize that there isn't much that is being done when it comes to the teacher training simply because of lack of technology. At the same time, training must be improved so that we have a better delivery that is done unto the student in TVET. For this to be improved, as you have seen all those pictures, you're going to realize that those pictures, most of them are from Korea as a university, and it is actually working towards improving the TVET markets back in Korea and not in Kenya. But if this recommendation can actually be looked into, then I do believe that we are going to improve the synergy of education, technology in our TVET in Kenya. Thank you so much for listening.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Caroline. She's talking about technology and TVET, and I think she has delivered the presentation. And yeah, we work the job. Thank you very much. Presenters, members present. I think we've come to the end of our introduction. There's another one. I have not presented.
We take that one for another 10 minutes. And if time
Right, are
allows,
you ready?
through chair of the
Yes,
conference,
I
we can have
can take questions. Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. Hope you can see my presentation. Are you able to see?
Let me make you the co-host shortly.
Are you able to see my presentation? Hello?
Not yet. Can you try and share?
Oh, okay. Just a minute, I'm trying to share.
We can see it now. You have 10 minutes. You may proceed.
Thank you. Okay. On far and why customers visit one spa over the other, or the choice they choose, what makes them visit a spa. And spa have spread in short, spa is a center, not an establishment or a building whereby people visit to have to experience maybe health services or beautification. So what we wanted to find out is what makes people or customers of spa want to visit this spa. And from the introductory part, we say that spa industry has developed a significant advanced economy and leisure activity owing to its increasing acceptance and benefit. And also countries employ innumerable
Faith, there's an echo effect. Are you able to move to a different room?
Yes.
There's an echo. We can't hear you properly.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Okay, you'll have to project your voice louder. Proceed.
Can you hear me all?
Yes, proceed.
Thank you. So most scholars are focused on the attributes that influence spa goers to visit spas, not knowing that there are other reasons that influence customers in visiting spas. And spas are spread widely, China and for purposes of bringing therapeutic and well-being to individuals. So the whole business of every spa is to create an atmosphere of restoration and health benefits to customers. Thus, understanding consumer spa this characteristic remains the key to marketing success. So the current literature will center only on the aspects of spa visit, that is the purpose of the spa, why do they visit, and the average time spent per spa visit, the average spending per spa visit, and if these customers or spa goers, they go alone or they accompany during spa visit. And then the day mostly they do visit this spa, during the weekdays or weekend, and how they respond the most search for spas in Eldoret town. So generally, most studies have centered on service quality as an influence of spa visits attributes. Other scholars, for instance, Kims and Sang also focus on how spa center management can provide high service quality among customers. Also, other scholars like Gozalen and Brea have also focused on the centered service quality can increase consumer positive reaction and behavioral intention. So mostly this research basically wanted to focus on the customer spa visit characteristics. Why do they, what makes them to visit these spas? So the main objective was to establish customer spa visit characteristics in Eldoret town. And this finding will be very essential not only to spa industry, but also other private service sectors and government stakeholders to grab maximum benefit on the rising gaps in the market. And also the knowledge will be impacted the spa management on the aspects or the reasons why customers visit. During the study or during the data collection, we had a questionnaire which led the researcher to continuously remind the respondent to complete the questionnaire. Also, data was not collected continuously since majority of the respondents booked specific days for spa visits, while other days had none or very few respondents were present. Therefore, the researchers collected data during those busy days and the days that customers booked. So that was the conception framework. The research methodology realized that I used the qualitative approach, and my sample population is 4,004 spa customers, whereby this spa customers were got from 4 major spas which were well equipped in Eldoret town. There are quite many, but only the researcher found there were only 4 which were well equipped spa services that the researchers were looking for. And we drive the sample to be 351 spa customers using the Kodari formula 2011, and the sampling technique used was simple random sampling. Results, we realized that the responder rate we got was 88.6, which was good, excellent, and the questionnaire which was used was 351. So going straight to the result, with the researcher revamped that the question on the purpose of spa visit, why they visited the spa, it showed that a good number of 32.8% visited the spa of their choice for beautification purposes, while an average of 24.10% visited the spa for pampering and relaxation. So the list of 1.3 who only visited for curiosity purposes. They visit to see what happens in the spa. Maybe they want to see the people that the therapist, so for curiosity purposes. So this finding implied that most respondents visited spas for beautification purposes. And this implication means that majority of the current spa goers visited spas to receive beauty therapy such as spa manicure, pedicure, face mask, body polish, acrylic, and gel nail, and other beauty treatments. So when you see ladies or men visiting spa, or maybe they have nails polished, or they have received maybe made good haircut, mostly do this kind of spas purposely for beautification purposes. Also, in the respect of the average time spent by a customer when they visit the spa of their choice, you realize that out of the total response, majority only spend 1 hour at the spa. That was the short 42.4%. Then an average of 39.5%. At least they could spend 2 hours in receiving those spa services. So for those who went for beautification or for curiosity, you find that they may be spending either a majority of 1 hour or an average of 2 hours. Then the least were those who spend 6 hours or more at the spa. Maybe for those who wanted to receive like therapeutic or massage, they could spend like at least 6 hours. So this finding implies that majority of the current spa respondents sought services that required less time in the spa they visited. And this may be due to the fact that most of the respondents are the working group and thus want to spend only less time on spa, maybe after work for purpose of
Very interesting. There are places where they are written auto spa, and you can take there your motor vehicle. There are spas where you will find very many men lining up because utapigwa massage, upigwa towel moto. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Upigwa maji moto, sijui nini, mpaka unashangaa utalipa pesa ngapi. Because the services you have been given are just so nice and you are tempted to go back there. You can bear witness with me, whatever Faith Koki is presenting is very current. And she's looking at the characteristics of the spa and the market, right? Maybe as we wait for her to come online, I want to really appreciate the presenters of today. In this room alone, we've done 8 presentations. Let's clap for ourselves. 8 presentations. And there was a presentation by Catherine Nelima. Valentine is here. Valentine, please raise up your hand. She's with us. Catherine, I think, went to the next room. Sheila is here. Sheila, Valentine was doing something about science and the home. You remember? Doing locally an avocado oil that you do locally, and you can use it to infuse very many things and consume it. Sheila is here, anemia, and the preschool aged children. You remember that? Then we had Dr. Richard Ocheng may not be available for questioning, but if you have any question, please don't hide it because we'll deliver it to him. I think he must be on his flight now back home. Then we had another one about the TVET, pedagogy in TVET. Faith is back. So we allow her to, then we take the questions. Okay, Faith, continue.
Not yet. Let me make you post. Proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Based on the average spending by customer, the researcher found that majority of the spa goers spent between 1,000 to 5,000. That was the results showed that 73.3% spent 1,000 to 5,000. Then an average number of 20% spend between 5,000 to 7,000, and the least spend 8,000 to 10,000 during the spa visits. So this study finding implies that a greater number of the spa respondents were the upper middle class income earners and the high income level were less price sensitive in consuming the spa services. Also, the study also sought to find out whether the respondents were accompanied during the spa visits. This variable was very significant in this research as it aided to ascertain if the current spa respondent preferred visiting the spa of their choice alone or accompanied by friends, family, or spouse. So based on the finding, we realized that 48.6%.
We are unable to see your slides.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Okay, let me try to share.